It's 2026. If you're about 30% body fat, I'll show you the fastest science-based route to 10% without giving up your career, travel, or the foods you love. You'll get the 3 steps that my clients like Derek, Travis, and Reto use to get lean fast and keep their life. Most men 35 plus get stuck at 15 to 20%. Step 2 explains why, and it's not what you think. Let's dive in. Step 1. Use leverage, not more hacks. You're here for information, but I'm here to save you months of it. The fastest way from 30% to 10% body fat isn't more hacks, it's leverage. Leverage means pulling the few things that move almost everything. So you stop bleeding your energy on 100 tiny decisions that don't matter. The men you saw, Derek, Travis, Reto, they work 60+ hour weeks. They run teams, they fly weekly, they eat out with clients. There's no world where they can do more. They stopped managing fitness and started pulling bigger levers. These levers are evidence-based because you won't reach 10% body fat through guesswork and grind alone. That's how these men dropped around 20, 30, and even 50 pounds of fat without living like bodybuilders. Let's bring in the science. In classic sleep research, adults restricted to just 4 hours of sleep per night for a couple of nights straight showed an 18% drop in leptin. That's the satiety hormone keeping you full. A 28% increase in ghrelin. That's the hunger hormone that makes you hungry. And about a 24% increase in reported hunger and appetite. All from not getting enough consistent sleep without changing diet or exercise. In another published study of the International Journal of Exercise Science, 6 weeks of resistance training increased a calorie burn by up to 247 calories per day. Over time, that kind of metabolic increase will have a meaningful difference in body recomposition. That just means how you lose fat and tone up. Compare that to cardio, you burn 400 calories during your workout, then nothing. Weight training burns 400 to 500 calories during the workout, then an additional 247 calories daily just from a metabolic boost. So you can be sitting at your desk like I'm doing right now and still be burning fat. That's leverage. Now, leverage only works if you use it on the right problem. So if you don't have the body or the physicality that you want right now, ask yourself this: what is the main thing holding me back? It's the first question I ask any client before we touch a plan. Because if you don't identify your main constraint, any new workout plan or any new diet plan feels like an uphill battle. If you're over 35 and progress feels slow and stubborn, then it's usually not a diet problem or a workout problem. It's a deeper system issue, which we'll address in step 2. That's why step 2 is going to be crucial if you want to get to 10 to 15% body fat in the next 3 to 6 months. Step 2, find your main constraint. I've made more fat loss mistakes than I can count at this point. And every single one has taught me something about why CEOs, executives, and just busy professionals always struggle with the love handles or that stubborn layer of belly fat after 35. Let me share my story because I think it'll help you avoid what I went through. When I was younger, I felt invisible. I could party, I could drink lots of alcohol, I could eat garbage, and my body just handled it. Then I decided to make a name for myself. I built a fitness company. I started traveling 150 days a year, led a team, took on responsibilities that were much bigger than myself. And that's when everything changed. For about 18 months, I completely fell off. I started drinking 4 to 5 times a week to cope with stress. I started ordering junk food or eating junk because it was easier. I started neglecting the gym, good sleep. I was even neglecting simple walks at a time because I tricked myself into believing I was too busy. I got to the point where I looked in the mirror and I can remember this, I didn't recognize myself. My constraints weren't invisible anymore. They were staring back at me. And I'm sharing this because I don't want you to let it get that bad. But if it already has, don't accept it. When you get older, you get kids, you get married, you get a successful but demanding career, staying in shape gets harder, but it becomes easy as well to accept that as the new standard. Don't. You need to set the standard. No one is going to do that for you. Not your wife, not your kids, not your friends. No one is coming to save you. That period made me realize something. I didn't have a diet problem. I didn't have a workout problem. I had constraint problems I wasn't addressing. And I'm willing to bet that you have constraint problems too. So here's a 60-second audit. I'll share 5 constraints, not just mine, but the ones that I see in almost every high performer I work with. And ask yourself, which of these was true for me for 2 or more days this week? That's your constraint. Constraint 1, late night snacking. It's 10:45 p.m, kids are asleep, you're on your laptop. And you get a little bit hungry, so you go into a snack drawer and a few nuts become chocolate. And chocolate becomes cereal. And before you know it, you've raided the whole snack drawer. And the result next morning is a puffy morning face, stronger cravings, lower energy, and maybe even some irritability. Night eating also wrecks sleep quality because of the blood distribution from the brain to the gut, and that affects tomorrow's decisions and you get slower. Constraint 2. Reactive eating mode. You have no nutrition structure. You eat out of convenience. You don't track calories or protein. And usually by 4 p.m. you're starving, so dinner always goes overboard. But you still feel that you have good days during the week, which you might, right? But energy is still flat and the belly fat won't go away. By the way, guys, I've dealt with these constraints myself as well. A little bit more than I'd like to admit. Constraint 3, circadian chaos. You have brutal travel schedules, 6 a.m. flights, lounge pastries, quick meals with no protein, 4 hours of sleep, and one trip becomes a lost week and feels like a hormonal mess. You come home to your family with a body that feels stiffer, more inflamed and behind. The number of executives we've had to help navigate difficult travel schedules like this is insane. That's why I put together a free guide for you called the Executive Travel Playbook. It covers exactly everything you need to stay on track for airports, hotels, and busy client dinners without sacrificing your progress. I'll link it in the description below. Constraint 4, doing what used to work. You are 35, 45, or maybe 60, and you're still training like you're 25. Back in college, you could eat almost anything. Muscle just packed on, and belly fat just melted away from a few treadmill sessions. Now, it's a complete different story. That same edge, it isn't there. So you tell yourself that age must be the problem. So what do? You train harder in the gym. You spend more time on the treadmill and you experiment with lots of different foods, mobility drills, exercises, but the belly fat, the energy, it just feels like you're fighting an uphill battle. More discipline isn't rewarding you with better results, where somehow the more you push, the more pushback you get from your body. And it starts to feel like a waste of time and energy. That pushback is a sign. It's the same reason why so many men struggle with getting below 15% body fat and end up stuck with a skinny fat look. Constraint 5, social drinking. It's been a long week of work and stress. You just want some drinks to relax, to unwind, but maybe you go a little bit too far socially on the weekend. And then it becomes a pattern. Those casual drinks that once were once per month become every weekend. And weekends become a couple of times during the week too. And a few months later, you wake up, you look in the mirror and see some softer man boobs and love handles. If any of these hit home, I get it. I fought versions of them too. And there are a lot more constraints than just these 5. Here's the thing. These symptoms and constraints aren't random. After analyzing hundreds of DEXA scans and blood work panels from our own clients, we found something shocking. It was almost never a diet problem or a workout problem. It was their high-stress, high-performance environment. The back-to-back meetings, the constant high-level decisions, the snacking, the skipping meals, the travel. It's given them respect, status, and financial freedom, but here's what it's also doing. It's flooding their body with cortisol, the main stress hormone. When you're living in a constant state of high stress, like most high performers are, your body's cortisol levels stay chronically elevated. I call this a cortisol overload. Your body was built for short stress bursts. Fight, recover, done. But when stress never turns off, your body stays in emergency mode. And that's when the bad things start to happen. Don't take my word for it, let me show you the research. Study 1. In 2024, researchers examined nearly 2,500 working professionals. Men with chronically high cortisol were 72% more likely to become obese than men with normal cortisol levels. Study 2. In 2023, they tracked men who went through weight loss surgery. The ones with higher cortisol before surgery, they lost way less weight the year after, even though both two candidates were going through the same exact procedure. Study 3. A clinical review from 2025 confirmed what we've been seeing for years. Chronic cortisol is one of the key drivers for belly fat, food cravings, metabolic disease, and weight regain, especially in high-stress, high-performing men. And if you're thinking, wait, that sounds like me. You're not alone. Now, not everyone needs to go deep on this, but if you've been stuck for months, maybe even years, despite doing all the right things, then there might be a chance where you're dealing with a cortisol overload on a deeper level. And if that's you, that is exactly what we help high performers fix. Now, it's not for everyone, and we're not going to be diving into it in this video. But I wanted you to know what's really going on because these things can be hard to address on your own. Now, whether you're dealing with a cortisol overload or you just need some better structure, step 3 is exactly where everyone should start. Step 3, a 7-day test. You're about to set the foundation to go from 30% to 10% body fat. Everyone needs structure, and this 7-day test will give you one that you can run in real life. Some of you will see clean progress. Some of you will realize you need to go deeper, but you won't know until you do the test. Run this 7-day test exactly as laid out. And after 7 days, if your energy is steadier, your sleep is better, and your cravings are more under control, repeat it for 2 more weeks. Make tiny refinements only. Don't add new work. If you're still stuck despite doing it right, you likely need to address the cortisol overload we discussed earlier. That's what Derek, Travis, and Reto had, and we had to go a level deeper. Either way, this test tells you the truth fast. The 7-day test is not a detox, it's not a challenge, it's not a fat loss sprint, it is a system reset. A way to remove decision fatigue and see what fits your life. There are 3 components to this 7-day test. Component 1, nutrition. For 7 days, eat from this list. Now, this isn't forever, so don't worry, you don't need to cut out pizza or burgers or sushi for the rest of your life. Write on a piece of paper or Google Doc these 10 foods that you can eat and these 10 foods that you can't eat. Print those out, put them in the fridge if you may, make recipes based on these foods. That's your roadmap for the next 7 days. Now remember, this is just for 7 days. Harvard points out that inflammation is largely diet driven. And what's so cool about this test is this is an anti-inflammatory diet where there's no strict rules about calories or portion sizes. When you simplify food choices and inflammatory triggers, this reduces psychological stress and decision fatigue. That's why many of you will feel better fast. This can be better energy, better sleep, less bloating, and sometimes as quick as up to 3 days. Component 2, progressive strength. 3 workouts in 7 days, 4 exercises. I'll show them on the screen. Look how simple that is. That can be done at any hotel or home gym. Here's the key though. Increase 5 to 10% of your lifting weight every workout. That is progressive overload, the fastest way to build muscle. Not to mention muscle memory. That is your body storing some data inside the muscles so you can maintain strength and longevity when you get older. If you want to get to 10% body fat, you need more muscle. Now, you don't need to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger and you won't. We're just aiming to lift weights intentionally here and get stronger every single week. More muscle means a faster metabolism. 6 weeks of resistance training increased calorie burn by up to 247 calories a day. You're not just burning calories during the workout. You're building an engine that burns calories 24/7. Component 3, address your constraint. Pick the constraint from earlier that hit the hardest and address it for 7 days. Late night snacking, swap it for a fruit and Greek yogurt bowl. I personally love dates, kiwi, pomegranate, and apples. And in a bowl, I'll add 150 grams of Greek yogurt. I'll even add a scoop of protein powder for an extra 20 grams of protein. And that is incredibly delicious and incredibly satiating. Alcohol, go 7 days dry. If you can't go 7 days dry, then I recommend that you limit to 1 to 2 drinks a night when you are drinking. And you can also alternate between a glass of water between your alcoholic drinks. Travel like me a lot, then print out your meal plan and just bring it with you. You can also bring optional supplements in your laptop bag, and supplements of course will vary depending on your body type and your needs. This is your real world stress test. But here's the part that most men miss with a 7-day test. You're not setting yourself up for 7 days. You're setting yourself up for the rest of your life. Now that may sound weird, but the frameworks, the mindset, and the approach to this is exactly how I want you to approach fitness. You want to know what works for you, and you want to know what doesn't. In 1 week, you'll know if the system works in real life. Around the travel, around the kids, around the responsibilities, around the limited time and stress, or if it breaks. Most men just dive head into their fitness journey, try to white knuckle 90 days, then rebound. They never install a system that actually works. This is different. After 7 days, you should feel better sleep, fewer cravings, more stable energy, more in control. That is what success looks like. Not abs, not scale weight. Here's the thing. Your body has a delayed response like investing. You don't judge your portfolio just after 3 days. You're too smart for that. You judge it after 3 months. If it works, you repeat it for 2 more weeks, you make tiny refinements, and you don't add new work. If it doesn't, find out why. Usually probably another constraint, and address it, then run it again. This is where most men fail. They never test, refine, and retest. They just follow a broken system for months. You will save years by solving it now with a 7-day test. Run this 7-day test, test it, refine it, and build on it. And watch how results compound as you stay metabolically healthy. And by the way, when things start working, that's when you can actually start adding more of the enjoyable things into your life, like the foods you love, like other things that you like to enjoy, whether that is alcohol or a few social events. But you need to have a stable system that you can always resort back to, because the foundation is built on science and removing the constraints that are holding you back. That is the real science-based way to go from 30% to 10% body fat without sacrificing your life. Now, for some of you, this 7-day test will be more than enough to make some steady progress. But if you've already been spinning your wheels for a while, in my experience as an executive fitness coach, there is always something deeper we find when we go beyond the surface. We work with a small number of high performers every month to address these systematic issues that can't be fixed with a 7-day test alone. If that sounds like you and something you might be interested in, I've left a link below to book a complimentary fitness call with us. We'll dig into your specific situation, your body recomposition, your stress patterns, your constraints, and from there, we can build a personalized roadmap that actually fits your life. Either way, run the test first, you'll know exactly where you stand. I'll see you in the next one.